the eyes of the world are once again turning toward Jerusalem. Not because of politics, not because of tourism, but because prophecy itself is coming alive before our eyes. At the very center of the world stands a small hill, the Temple Mount, the most contested piece of land on earth. And right now, what's unfolding there is shaking heaven and earth, fulfilling words spoken thousands of years ago. The Temple Mount, known in Hebrew as Har Habayit, is the holiest site in Judaism. It's where Abraham was willing to offer Isaac. It's where Solomon built the first temple, where the presence of God once dwelled in glory. And it's where the second temple stood before being destroyed by the Romans in 70 AD. But the prophets declared that one day a third temple would rise again, in the last days, and that it would mark the beginning of the end. For 2,000 years, the Jewish people have prayed, next year in Jerusalem. And against all odds, in 1948, Israel was reborn as a nation. Then, in 1967, during the Six-Day War, Israeli forces captured the Old City and reclaimed the Temple Mount. But out of political caution, the Israeli government allowed the Islamic Waqf to maintain control of the site. Since then, Jews have been allowed to pray at the Western Wall, but not openly on the mount itself. Yet, despite all this, something incredible has begun to happen. In the past few years, there has been a dramatic increase in Jewish worshippers ascending the Temple Mount. According to Israeli authorities, the number of Jewish visitors has reached record levels, surpassing 50,000 in a single year, something unimaginable just a decade ago. Many of them go quietly, praying under their breath, fulfilling prophecy without even realizing it. The prophet Isaiah declared, "In the last days the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and all nations shall flow unto it." That's Isaiah chapter 2, verse 2. Today, people from every nation are literally flowing to that mountain, praying, recording, and watching history unfold. But what's even more astonishing is what's happening behind the scenes. The Temple Institute in Jerusalem has spent decades preparing for the rebuilding of the temple. They have recreated all of the sacred vessels exactly as described in the Torah: the golden menorah, the table of showbread, the garments of the high priest, even the breastplate with 12 precious stones. Everything is ready, not symbolic, but physically real, waiting to be placed inside a third temple. In 2018, the Sanhedrin, a revived council of Jewish religious leaders, issued a formal call for the construction of the third temple. They have even trained priests from the tribe of Levi to perform the ancient sacrifices again. And yes, there are now qualified Kohanim, descendants of Aaron, who have been practicing the rituals for the first time in nearly 2,000 years. This isn't speculation. These are verifiable publicized events in Israel. And perhaps the most mysterious sign of all, the red heifer. In the book of Numbers, chapter 19, God commanded that a red heifer without blemish be sacrificed for purification. For centuries, Israel had no such heifer, but in 2022, 5 perfectly red heifers were brought from Texas to Israel under rabbinic supervision. They are now being raised under strict watch near the Mount of Olives, and the rabbis have confirmed they could be ready for sacrifice as early as this year or next. This single event could trigger the beginning of temple purification, a crucial step before the third temple can be built. Now think about that for a moment. The temple vessels are ready. The priesthood is ready. The red heifer is ready. And the mount itself is drawing the attention of the world again. Every prophetic piece is being positioned like a divine chessboard, exactly as Scripture foretold. But what does the Bible say will happen next? In Daniel chapter 9, verse 27, the prophet says, "A ruler will arise and confirm a covenant with many for 1 week, 7 years. In the middle of that week, he will cause the sacrifice and offering to cease, and set up the abomination that causes desolation." That means sacrifices must begin again for them to be stopped. And for that to happen, the temple must exist. We are standing on the threshold of that reality. Revelation chapter 11 also speaks of a temple standing in Jerusalem during the end times, where John is told to measure the temple of God and the altar, but not the outer court, because it has been given to the Gentiles. That's exactly what we see today. The Temple Mount divided, half under Islamic control and half under Jewish sovereignty. The prophetic pattern is unmistakable. Recent reports show increasing tension on the Mount, confrontations between Jewish worshippers and Islamic guards, debates over sovereignty, and even international calls for shared worship. The United Nations and world leaders regularly discuss the status of the Temple Mount. They call it a political issue, but spiritually it's much deeper. It's a battle for the throne of God on earth, and that's why it matters. Because the Temple Mount is not just a piece of land, it's the stage of God's final plan. The prophets Zechariah and Ezekiel both foresaw a time when the Lord himself would return to Jerusalem, and his feet would stand upon the Mount of Olives, facing the Temple Mount directly. Zechariah 14 verse 4 says, "And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives." This is where heaven and earth will collide. This is where Jesus will reign as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. But before that glorious moment, Scripture tells us there will be great deception. The coming world leader, the Antichrist, will use the temple as his stage. He will appear as a man of peace, helping Israel rebuild the temple, only to later defile it by declaring himself as God. That's 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 4. He sits in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. And this will mark the midpoint of the Great Tribulation. So when we see Israel preparing for the temple, when we see red heifers, when we see priestly garments ready, and the nations debating over Mount Control, we are not just watching history, we are watching prophecy. We are watching the Bible being fulfilled, line by line, stone by stone. Even secular media now covers temple-related developments. Documentaries, news clips, and political debates all point to one undeniable truth. The Temple Mount has become the epicenter of world attention once again. It is no longer a forgotten ruin. It is the heartbeat of prophecy. So what does this mean for us? It means we are living in the generation that will see the fulfillment of what prophets long to witness. It means the return of Jesus Christ is near, very near, and it means we cannot live lukewarm anymore. The shaking of nations, the conflicts, the spiritual battles, they are all leading to one place, the Mount of God. Every time you hear news about Jerusalem, remember, this is not coincidence. This is divine timing. The Lord is aligning every event according to His word. The Temple Mount prophecy is not waiting for the future. It is unfolding right now. So I ask you, are you ready? If the temple is rebuilt soon and prophecy accelerates before our eyes, will your heart be ready to meet the King? Because the next great event on God's timeline isn't just the rebuilding of the temple, it's the return of the Messiah. When Jesus returns, He will not come to a hidden stable or a quiet field. He will come to Jerusalem to reign from the Temple Mount itself. Zechariah 8 verse 3 says, "I will return to Zion and dwell in the midst of Jerusalem, and Jerusalem shall be called a city of truth." Everything is pointing toward that day. The vessels are ready. The sacrifices are ready. The Temple Mount is stirring, and the King is on His way. The Temple Mount prophecy is being fulfilled before our eyes, and the clock of eternity is ticking faster than ever.